Connecting.
Hey there everybody, and welcome to EVE Basics. I'm Hendrik Taladar, and in this video we're going to be going over the in-game UI, also standing for User Interface. In EVE, the UI can be fairly daunting and overwhelming at times because there's a lot of information that you need to understand in a very short amount of time and able to play the game efficiently. So in this tutorial video, we're just going to go over the basics of what you see and what it means. So right now we're in a station. And in a station, you have different option menus, which is known as the Station Services menu, which you can find on the right-hand side. At the top, you see the name of a company. Now, we're in an NPC station, meaning it's controlled by non-player groups. In player groups, you'll see the corporation logo of the corporation that actually owns the station. Here you'll see Enter Captain's Quarter, which is more of a three-dimensional space to do interactive items and interactive menus. And then you have the Undock button, which lets you undock your ship from the space station. Below that, you see the Station Services. Now, these are different menus and windows that let you do different things. So right here we have the Loyalty Point Store. The Loyalty Point Store is tied to mission running and loyalty points, which you earn from completing missions. This lets you buy different items that are unique to that corporation or that faction if you're in faction warfare. So for example, we can get a Brutix Navy issue from this Loyalty Point Store if we had 250,000 loyalty points, a Brutix, and 2 Calente Beta Nexus chips. You can also get implants, which are right here. You can get skill points or skill books. You can get boosters. You can get other types of ships. So the Loyalty Point Store is really useful. It's kind of like a specialized market that's unique only to that faction or that corporation. There's different Loyalty Point Stores for the 4 different empires. There's also the Loyalty Point Stores for the different pirate factions in the game, which all have their own unique items. Next to that, you have your ship insurance window, which basically is what it sounds like. You can insure your ship, and you insure it for a certain length of time. And when it's destroyed, you get money back. So for a basic, it's going to cost 217,000 ISK. But if my ship gets destroyed, I receive 2 million ISK. And that's if it gets destroyed within the next 12 weeks. Now, this is all in real time. So if we go to the Platinum, it's another 12-week period. We pay 1.3 million, but we get 4.3 million in return. So insuring a ship is pretty useful to have, and it's actually a very common thing to do. Most ships you can get on contracts from your corporation or your alliance will typically be insured, or you can just quickly insure it in a station as long as it has the services, and most stations have insurance services. After that, you have faction warfare. Now, this is unique to NPC stations. Faction warfare is a type of game mechanic and a type of gameplay that players can partake in, and we have a different video on that, which you can watch. It'll be linked somewhere in the annotations or in the description below. But it's a type of gameplay, and you can only sign up for a faction warfare inside an NPC station. You can't sign up for faction warfare in a player-controlled station in 0.0 space. And it's just a different type of game mechanic and gameplay that we will cover in a different video. You have the Bounty Office, which is pretty self-explanatory. Different players can put bounties on one another. You can see this guy, Gara's Sniper, has a 110 billion ISK bounty, meaning if we kill him, we get 110 billion ISK for claiming the bounty. This is just a way to see who has the bounties, maybe use different tools to find them, see what corporations have the most bounties on them, and alliances. After that, you have the ship fitting window. This is a window where you can put different modules onto your ship. We have a different video that goes over that, but basically this is how you outfit your ship to do whatever specialized needs you needed to do. So, for example, this ship, which is an interceptor, I put on 3 inertial stabilizer Tech 2s, meaning that this now can go very, very fast and warp very fast, and it's commonly referred to as a travel scepter. After that, you have the regional market. This is basically just your market. You can find items that are locally found within the system itself or within the region. You can't really search anything past the region. So using the market, you have to go to different regions to access and see everything that's there. So like if we look under what frigates are available and go under assault frigates, Mimitar Wolf, we can see that there's one wolf for 24.7 million in this station, and there's other wolves throughout the region in all these other different stations. Next, you have the Reprocessing Plant. This is basically where you drop an item into the left-hand menu, and it will then be reprocessed, meaning it'll be broken down into its raw components, and then you can use those raw components to make another item using the industry services, which the station doesn't have, but that's another menu you can access. Next, you have the repair shop, which again is pretty self-explanatory. What you do is you just pay to repair your ship. If it's damaged, the ship isn't, so you won't see it, but you'll see the ships or items that are damaged, and you'll just click, repair, and it'll give you a cost. It's usually not that expensive. The character customization window is basically where you just go to change your character's clothing. If we click on our menu, or on our character sheet, click on the portrait, you can see what our character looks like. We can just change the look of this in the portrait in that menu. That actually brings us to the next 3 tabs just below the station services. These are the agents tabs, which lets us do missions for whatever agents currently live in that station. These usually don't ever change too much. Right now, the only station agent we have is a level 4 for security, and that means we can't do it because it says it's not available to us because we don't have the proper standings. And we go over missions and agent standings in a different video. Next to that, you have guests, which is the number of actual players and the names of those players that are currently docked in the station. So you can see me here. I'm as this character because I don't have a little standing icon next to my name and my portrait. And this guy, Extra Habit, isn't a member of any group that we are friendly with because he has no standing. And then offices. Offices are for different purposes. Basically, they let you manage and organize your corporation, which is a player corporation, which is more or less a guild or a super guild if you get to an alliance level. But basically, it's a way to organize all your items and assets together and coordinate with all the different people who have specific standings within your corporation to manage those assets. So that's the station services menu. And if you look in the bottom right, we see this little notification feed. What this does is it tells you anything that's of important that you want to activate. So if we go to our notification settings, we can say, we don't really want to hear about agents, we don't want to hear about bills, we don't want to hear about bounties, but we do want to hear about contacts. And then we can open the subsection and say, well, we don't want to see a notification when we add a contact, and that sort of thing. To the bottom right, you see the chat window. These are movable and customizable to put in any system and layout you prefer. To open a new chat channel or join a new chat channel, you just click on that little text bubble, and then you can be taken to this menu, and then you type in the name of the chat channel or create the chat channel you want and just name it whatever you want. There's also handy quick links, like we can go to the help chat channels real quick. You can just go join the English help chat channel, EV University's chat channel. If you speak French or German or Japanese or Russian, they have language specific chat channels. There's faction stuff for like Amar and different factions within Eve. There's also the player channels, which we've created our own, which you can see right here. That's a lot that this character has access to. So then, on the left-hand side of the screen, we have the Neocom menu, and this is basically a menu that is always going to be visible. The station services menu you only see when you're docked in a station. The Neocom menu is visible 24/7, no matter what, unless you actually right-click and just do, where is it? Turn auto hide on, and then it'll just slide away. But usually most people don't do that because the Neocom is really useful. So this is basically similar to the station services menu. It just opens up different menus and windows. A lot of the stuff in the station services menu you can actually access from your Neocom. So if we just go down, you see inventory. This is a lot of inventory management items, like your inventory in your station. Your cargo hold is your ship's cargo hold. Then you can go to like personal items and see, wow, I have lots of different items in all these different stations and such. You can also then go to redeem items if you bought an item, or CCP have given out different prizes, because they usually do that around like holidays or whatever. You can redeem them here, or just hit the hotkey. I believe it is it's Alt Y. Okay. And then under accessories, it's basically non-gameplay related stuff. There's an in-game web browser. So if you open this up and we just go google.com. And if we just go google.com, we can actually access Google. We can go to different web pages and websites. This is pretty useful because if you're doing an AFK activity like ratting or mining, you can just browse the web while you're still in the game. It's kind of cool. It doesn't work with sites like YouTube or twitch.tv, so you can't really watch videos or video games while you're inside the web browser in EVE Online. What else do we have? We have the calculator, which is pretty self-explanatory, a notepad, useful. Logs and messages. Now this is a pretty useful tool, and most people have this open. What this does is it tells you anything you want to know that the game records. So as you can see, I have the combat logs and messages, meaning I can see anything that happens when it comes with combat. So if I attack or get attacked, I can see who's attacking me, what type of damage I'm taking, and that's that sort of stuff. You then have the business subsection, which lets you open the regional market, which is in the station services menu. Contracts, which are a way to trade items to different players rather than just doing a direct trade, which you can only do when you're docked in a station with that other player. Your wallet, which is pretty self-explanatory. It lets you track all your finances and information. Industry. Now, industry is an interesting career path to go down. We actually have a different video on this, and this is a pretty good way to make some money early on. You also have planetary colonies, which is a way to track any planets that you are doing planetary interaction, which is another money-making venture you can go down. Agent Finder is a way to find mission agents that you can do missions for. So say I want to do only missions for the Kana Kingdom, and I only want to do it for Coned Works, which is a corporation within that kingdom, and I only want to do mining missions. So there's a way to narrow down who you can do missions for, who you want to do missions for, and where they are located. And if you right-click the station and system that they are in, and just hit set destination, you can head over there. And that is pretty useful to have. You also have your character sheet. Your character sheet's got a lot of different information about your character. You can see your name, how many skill points you have, your home system, your character's background, which is your bloodlines and so forth that you created when you first made the character, your current corporation, your alliance, your security standing, which is something we covered previously, and other stuff. You can also look at your skills, you can look at any attributes you have, your augmentations, where you have jump clones, and so on and so forth. It's a very useful thing. This is also a menu where you can go and buy a in-game Plex, which is a way to buy additional 30-day game time for your subscription to EVE Online. Under social, let's see what else is in business. You also have faction warfare and bounty offices. Under social, you have basic other stuff. You have the in-game mail system. You have a calendar system, which you can also access by clicking the clock in the bottom left, which shows all times in Universal Time, which is UTC. And you also have a fleet window, which you can open up and you can join someone else's fleet, that as long as they made it public and put an advert up. You also have a Twitch thing where you can actually stream from in-game to twitch.tv on your twitch.tv account, but most people would prefer using third-party softwares just because it's a lot easier to manage what information you're showing in those third-party softwares than the in-game program. You can also open up the chat channels. So we already looked at the character sheet. People and places is a way to look up different contacts or mission agents or any locations or stations that you want to go towards. Ship fitting is the exact same thing as in the station services window. The two different maps are just the different star maps in the game. The regular map without the map beta. This is the old map. It's a very useful tool. You can look at the galactic map, or you can look at a direct solar system map. And you can also use F10 to access it and exit it. You can also use the new map, which is still showing as in beta, but it's officially fully released. And this is a lot of the same information in a little bit better of a display pattern and in different functions related to that. but it's still being worked on, so CCP have always been changing it. ISIS is a way to see what ship trees go where and what ships belong to what ship tree. Basically it's a way for you to quickly identify, I just saw a guy flying an Omen Navy issue. Well, an Omen Navy issue is a type of Navy cruiser, meaning that it comes from the cruiser line and can go down. And also in the cruiser line you have the Legion, you have the Devoter, and so on and so forth. It's a very useful tool. A lot of people are recommended to get familiar with those ships using that tool as opposed to just reading pages and pages of wikis. You also have the journal system, which is a way for you to track any mission details you have and what your loyalty point statuses are. Compare tool is a way to compare different items, such as modules, to see, all right, well, this module does this, but this other module, which looks very similar, what's the difference? And that's a quick way to compare rather than just opening up two different windows and looking back and forth. The New Eden store is a real money store that you use to buy different items and ship skins. It's all cosmetic items, so you don't have any gameplay affecting stuff that goes in with it. The opportunities map is the new tutorial system. The help window lets you file a support ticket or pull up the EVE Online wiki, and settings is just like hitting escape. Now, the one thing about the Neocom menu is you can click and drag any of these items. So say I want to drag journal, I can click and drag it to my Neocom menu on the left hand side. So now you see it at the bottom, and I can click and drag it and move it wherever I want. Right click and remove it. This is useful because a lot of different people have different Neocom menu setups. I've seen people who have all industry related stuff on their Neocom, but as you can see, I don't have much in the way of industry stuff. I just maybe have the regional market and contracts. That's just because my preference is not to do industry related stuff. My preference is to do PvP related stuff. Okay, now we are undocked and we are in space, and as you can see, the UI is a lot different than when you're in a station. In the middle, you can see where your ship is. You can see your overview window, your selected items window, and a bunch of stuff in the bottom middle, as well as your information in the top left of what system you're in and all that information that we went over when we were talking about how to fly your ship. You also see your chat windows, which also don't ever change when you're docked or undocked, as well as your Neocom, which is in the far left. Now, the key difference between when you're docked and when you're undocked in terms of the UI is mainly your overview window, which is found on the right hand side of the screen right here. The overview window is a very, very good tool, and it's a very important tool to have. So understanding how to use the overview window will actually probably take a whole different video to just go over. But it's a different way for you to filter out different bits of information. So for right now, if you look at the very top where it says overview, parenthesis, # -- normal PvP, this means that this tab, which is labeled main, is my normal PvP settings, meaning I will see any non-friendly ships show up here, as well as I will see different stations, which are these boxes, different stargates, and the system sun. Now this other tab I have is just basic travel, meaning I won't ever see any of those ships. I also won't see the sun. I will only see stuff that I need to know and use when I am traveling to different systems, like stargates or stations. And if I hop over to, say, warp out, I will see all the different celestial bodies that are within the system. So you see a asteroid belt here, you see all the different moons, you'll see all the different planets, you'll also see all the different customs offices, which are structures that orbit around a planet, which comes into play when you're dealing with planetary interaction. So that's the overview. The overview is a very important tool. It's very useful, and we're going to be going over that in a completely different video. But for right now, just know that it's a way for you to filter out little bits of information that you need to specifically know to do your job. So say you're flying a logistics ship. You're not going to be using a PvP overview because you're going to see all the enemy other ships. You're probably going to be using a friendly overview showing only your friendly ships and only your ships that are in fleet with you. And that's, information that you need to filter out and use for yourself. In the bottom middle here where you see the circle, this is the I guess it's called the Capacitor menu. I usually just call it the ship information menu. But basically it gives you a bunch of different information about your ship. Now, on the outside you see what's called a sensor overlay, and if we move our camera around, you'll see these different items kind of pointing off in the distance. And if you look on the main screen, like over where the sun is, you see these floating icons that have these weird numbers, and you see it's 22.1 AU away. These are different cosmic anomalies or signatures that your ship will sense and detect while you're in the system, and these are only found in specific systems. So like FO1-503 is only found in this system, and it's only active right now. Now we need to use a tool to scan those down, but basically this item that lets us see these and their location to our ship is known as the ship compass, and it only shows the anomalies and signatures that your ship will find. You can actually filter out what you want to see. Like, I don't want to see landmarks, I don't want to see anomalies, I don't want to see agent objectives, and I don't want to see any of my bookmarks. So I only want to see signatures, and now I can see where all these different signatures are. So this is a useful tool. Most people just leave it be, though I mean you can filter it out, and it's really important to filter out in certain situations. Moving inwards, you see your health states, and you see these three different rings. There's the outer one, the middle one, and the innermost one. As this icon showing as we hover over it are the different health states for your shields, armor, and structure. It goes shields on the outside, armor in the middle, structure in the very middle, towards the center of the capacitor menu. This is basically your health states for your ship. As you can see, I only have 500 shield hit points, 500 armor hit points, and 625 structure hit points. Once all those are gone, meaning they're all at 0, my ship is destroyed and I am ejected into my capsule, which is a different type of ship. It has its own health states. It's basically a way for you to escape without dying. When we go all the way in the middle, you see our capacitor. The capacitor is most aptly described as your ship's battery, or your ability to do different things using your ship's modules. And in some cases, for those who play like World of Warcraft or Diablo or whatever, it's basically more or less your mana. And at the very bottom, you see our current speed and our ship's current speed. If we click on it, we can actually set our speed to a custom number, or if we just hit the plus or the minus, we can stop the ship or go at max speed. And as you can see, we are now moving in space. There are hotkeys for you to use manual piloting, but for the most part, most people in EVE use their mouse and keyboard, fly their ship around, and double click in space and so forth. So now to the left of the capacitor menu, you see all these little different icons and buttons. We'll start with this button right here, the safety. This is a way for you to use the game mechanics to make sure that you don't break the rules in certain security systems like high sec and low sec, so you don't engage and get aggro, which then will cause the NPC police to attack you. Most people who engage in PvP just always have it set to disabled because they don't really care, and most people who do that know that I'm not going to attack someone when I'm in a high security system or a low security system where there's NPC police around, so it doesn't really matter to have it set to green. It's always important to have this set to disabled, because then you also won't get annoying little pop-up notifications that say, are you sure you want to jump into a low-sec system? Don't you know that there's lots of people here who can shoot you? So then, this little icon right here is your cargo hold icon, and basically it pulls up your ship's cargo hold. Just like if we opened up our inventory and our Neocom menu, it's the exact same menu. Below that, you have your scanners. Now, these are 3 different scanners your ship can have. You have your directional scanner, which allows you to scan other ships within a certain range and distance. You can also use it to filter out your overview preset. So if we set it to normal PvP, we have it at max range, a full 360-degree arc, which is at maximum range of 14.3 AU. We see that there are one ship, player ship, it's called a Cyclone under the type, and it's named as XC. You also see a Stargate to another system and 3 moons. The other scanner window is a probe scanner window. Now you actually have to have a probe launcher and probes to use to access this probe scanner window, and it's a way for you to hunt down celestials. You can also use combat probe scanners to hunt down other players' ships and use those, and that's what you use the map menu for. That's where the map comes into play. There's also the moon analysis window, which allows you to determine what type of moon a moon is, as well as how much ore is available on that moon for you to then extract using different mechanics known as moon mining and moon anomaly arrays. Below that, you have the autopilot function. This coincides with your route, which allows you to simply just press the button and the ship will automatically fly to whatever destination you want to go to. It's not a terrible thing to use when you're in a high security system or in a high security route that takes you through a bunch of high security systems. However, going into low security systems, and more importantly, zero security systems, it's usually a bad idea to use your autopilot because the way the game works, it doesn't land you at zero always on the gate that you want to take, and landing at zero on a gate in zero security space is usually important to do to avoid being attacked by other players. You then have your tactical overlay, and this is just a user interface that shows you a bunch of tactical information. It goes out to a range of a full grid, which is 200 kilometers. It'll also show you if you have combat modules, which this ship doesn't have actually. But if you have combat modules on, it'll show you a bubble, sort of like this one immediately around our ship. It'll show you how far that module can attack at. Now this circle or sphere that you see around our ship right now, that's our lock range. That's how far out we can lock a ship. So we can lock a ship, it looks like around 37, 38 kilometers. And the different numbers are obviously all in kilometers. So you see 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so forth. You can turn that on and off using the Control-D hotkey. And then your camera controls are just different ways for you to track your camera. If we hit C, you see this little box. And if we move the box around, the camera will always center on that. So then, to the right of the capacitor menu, you see these three icons, which are the inertial stabilizer Tech 2s. However, they are in a straight line. Now you may be going, well, why is that there? These are our modules that we fit to our ships, and the entire right-hand side of the capacitor menu show our different modules. If you look at these three little icons that say overload rack, we open up our ship fitting window. They actually coincide with our high slots, our mid slots, and the icons for our low slots if we took the inertial stabilizers off. This is where you can actually see the different modules you put onto your ship, so you can then use them. The hotkeys for the most part when you're using high slot modules, which are predominantly offensive modules, are the F1 through F9 keys. And then using the mid slots is an Alt F1, and then the low slot is a Control F1. You can always move them around to suit your own hotkey needs, but it's never a bad idea to just use F1 as your main gun. So if you put all your guns and group them together in a single group, and then put them onto the F1 hotkey, and if you hit that, all your guns will activate and all of them will attack the target that you've selected. Now another important thing to do, and they don't do this by default, is if you click this little 3 lines that says options, you pull up a lot of different other information that comes with this menu. You can display empty slots, which let us see what slots we have empty on our ship. We have 3 empty high slots, 4 empty mid slots, but our low slots, which we only have 3 of, shows our modules that we put there. Now if we open up our ship fitting window, you'll actually see we have 2 rig slots that we haven't put any rigs on for our ship, and that comes with ship fitting, which we go over in a different video. You don't always need to see those, so you don't always have to display empty slots, though some people prefer to see them so they know that they're missing a module or 2. And one thing most people do is they turn off displaying passive modules. Now you saw that our inertial stabilizers disappeared. That's because inertial stabilizers in most low slots are passive. They don't need to be clicked on to be activated or have their hotkey clicked to be activated. They just automatically work. That does that for this video overview of the in-game user interface for EVE Online.
Skill training completed.